Have you ever paused in the middle of life's endless motion simply because something so small somehow made you feel seen, not by human eyes, but by the way reality ever so gently touches you? A song begins just as your heart is breaking. Someone calls you the moment you're thinking of them. A symbol, a number, a memory resurfaces just as you were searching for an answer. We call these things coincidences, but beneath the surface, Carl Jung gave them a more sacred name: synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence. Not everything that happens is random. Some things occur not to make you believe in magic, but to stop you in your tracks and begin to sense that something is speaking to you in the language of the soul. Carl Jung was not a mystic. He was a psychoanalyst, a thinker of the human spirit. But after thousands of hours listening to his patients, he began to see that the outer world is not entirely separate from the inner one. Jung believed that sometimes the subtlest movement in your soul can pluck a string in the collective unconscious, and from deep within the world reality begins to respond, not with words, but through events that seem meaningless, yet carry a message meant only for you. Let me tell you a few synchronicities the universe has orchestrated. A little girl named Laura Buxton, living in Stafford, England, released a balloon during her grandparents' celebration. She simply wrote her name on a tag and let it drift into the sky. She didn't know. She had just sent a message to the universe. That balloon floated 140 miles and landed on a fence in Wiltshire. Another little girl picked it up, also named Laura Buxton. She too was 10 years old. She also had a guinea pig with orange and white fur. She wore a pink sweater the day they met. She carried a stuffed animal identical to the first girl's. Both had brown hair, blue eyes, and both were walking a black dog, exactly 3 years old. They each had a gray rabbit at home. If it were just one thing, we might laugh it off. But when everything matches, we have to ask, is something trying to connect two distant souls? Anthony Hopkins, the acclaimed British actor, once scoured all of London for a copy of The Girl from Petrovka, a novel long out of print. No one had it. Then one day, while sitting at a train station, he looked beside him, and there was the book lying on a wooden bench. Inside were handwritten notes and character analysis, clearly from someone who had studied it deeply. Years later, when Hopkins met the author George Pfeiffer, he recounted the story. Pfeiffer was stunned. That was his personal copy, one he had lent to a friend who lost it on a train years ago. The universe not only brought the book to the man destined to play the lead, it returned it to the very one who had birthed the story. These things are not fairy tales. They happen every day in the ordinary lives of very real people. But only those who are quiet enough can feel the tremor of these subtle waves. Jung once said, "Synchronicity is the manifestation of inner patterns mirrored in the outer world, not through causality, but through meaning." You think of someone, they reach out. You recall a dream and see it unfold in waking life. You wrestle with a decision, and the universe sends a symbol like a whisper. These things aren't meant to be analyzed. They arrive so you can stop running and start listening to the things stirring in your soul. No one teaches us how to read the language of synchronicity. There's no textbook, no course, because it doesn't belong to logic. It belongs to lived experience. And only when you are still enough, open enough, real enough, will you begin to see the universe is not random. It has order, it has memory, and it is listening. If you've ever experienced a coincidence so profound it made you stop, know this. You're not crazy. You're not imagining it. You've simply touched another layer of reality where consciousness and matter speak through symbols. Share your story below if you've ever been called by a synchronicity, because maybe your experience holds the message someone else needs right now. And when you begin to enter that world where every tiny detail hums with meaning, you'll realize something: reality isn't just happening around you. Reality is happening for you. Are you ready to step deeper into the realm where consciousness shifts matter? Because from the moment you start believing that coincidences carry meaning, you are no longer merely living in this world. You are part of it, and it is answering you moment by moment. Up next, we'll go deeper into the space where reality begins to shift with the frequency of your inner world, and the universe starts echoing back like a resonant field. There comes a strange moment when you no longer see synchronicity as a series of beautiful coincidences, but as a song, a melody that reality begins to play the moment you hit the right note within yourself. In the previous part, you brushed against the question, are these coincidences just random? Or are they a call from within? But if synchronicity is the language of the universe, then how does the universe know what you need? The answer lies in the frequency of consciousness. Carl Jung never separated consciousness from the material world. He believed the mind doesn't live only in your head. It extends into the very space around you. And when you emit an emotional frequency strong enough, the world will respond like a resonant field. So then, what is consciousness? It's not just what you think, it's what you believe, even if you don't know you believe it. It's the wounds you've forgotten, but that still breathe quietly within you. It's the longing you haven't voiced, echoing like a distant call in a deep forest. Picture yourself as a musical instrument. Each emotion within you is a string, and the world is air. When a clear note is struck inside you, the entire space begins to resonate. It doesn't need you to scream. It doesn't need you to beg. It just needs you to be real. Let me share a different kind of story with you. Not a series of external events, but a ripple that began inside someone. A friend once told me she had spent years feeling aimless, not knowing what to do, how to live. Each day blurred into another empty and weightless. Until one night, too tired to keep pretending, she sat in silence by her window and whispered, "I don't know who I am, but if anyone out there is listening, please show me the way." It wasn't a prayer. There was no ritual, no expectation. But the next morning she received an email from an old friend she hadn't spoken to in years. Attached was an article. It spoke of everything she had quietly confessed, of being lost, of the journey back to the self. That day something opened. Not dramatically, not clearly, but enough to let her know, I was heard. Synchronicity doesn't need you to believe. It only needs you to be honest enough with yourself that the frequency you emit is no longer distorted by masks or performance. Jung called this the relationship between psyche and matter. When you begin to live truthfully, when the unconscious slowly moves into conscious light, you are no longer separate from the current of the universe. You become an active participant in its unfolding. In other words, your consciousness is the instrument, and the world is the orchestra waiting to harmonize. The real question is, what note are you playing within yourself? Is it repressed anger, unhealed insecurity, or is it a quiet, innocent longing that sighs beneath the silence? Synchronicity rarely arises from what you rationally want. It comes from what your soul is yearning for, but hasn't spoken aloud. So when you start to notice synchronicities happening more often, that's not a sign the universe loves you more. It's a sign that you're finally living more truthfully. Synchronicity doesn't always come to give you what you like. Sometimes it arrives to pull you away from what you've gotten used to, but no longer serves you. You meet someone for only a few weeks, but they reach a place in you no one else ever has. You keep seeing the same symbol, a number, a song, a phrase again and again. It follows you, not to haunt you, but to remind you, don't forget what you're vibrating. Jung said, "We do not meet anyone by accident. We meet each other when we are vibrating on the same frequency. And it's not just about meeting others. It's about meeting yourself again, the version of you that got lost, the part of your soul that was left behind in the rush of surviving. If you're living through a time when everything feels chaotic, pause. not to control, but to listen. What are you sending out from within? Don't rush to do something to fix your life. Instead, get still and look closely, because sometimes the world doesn't respond to what you do, but to who you're becoming. If synchronicity has ever shown up in your life and you knew it wasn't random, share it below, because your story might be the very sign someone else is quietly waiting for today. Because from the moment you realize consciousness creates vibration and reality can resonate back, you'll no longer see life as a disconnected string of events. You'll begin to live like a musician, gently playing the song of your soul, and at an even deeper layer, where thoughts aren't just thoughts, but vibrating waves within an unseen field of energy. Something else begins to happen. The people you meet, the moments you experience, will feel as if they were placed there by an invisible hand you can no longer deny. There comes a moment in life when you stand still in an ordinary moment, and suddenly everything around you feels like it's happening for you. No one told you this, no one pointed it out, but something in the air whispers, you are being seen. After you begin to live more honestly in tune with an emotional frequency, no longer distorted by defense or haste, something strange happens. The outside world starts to feel like a dream. A dream you're somehow writing from within. It's not a delusion, and it's not about controlling reality. It's a return to an ancient principle. The world is not just where you live. It's an extension of your consciousness. Carl Jung once shared one of the most awakening moments of his life. A patient of his kept dreaming of a golden scarab beetle, a symbol in ancient Egyptian mythology of rebirth and soul transformation. Every time she recounted the dream, Jung listened, recorded, but did not intervene. Until one day, while she was telling the same dream again, Jung heard a soft tapping at the window. He got up, opened it, and in flew a scarab beetle with a shimmering green-gold shell, incredibly rare for that region. Jung gently caught it, handed it to her, and said, "Here is your beetle." That moment couldn't be explained by logic. It wasn't a miracle. It was the unconscious stepping into daylight, a dream, crossing into waking reality. Jung never believed that symbols like this appear by accident. He believed in a force moving alongside consciousness, an unconscious, ancient, and deeply intelligent force. And when a symbol keeps repeating in your life, it's trying to awaken something within you. Maybe you've encountered such symbols, an animal that keeps showing up within the same week, a book falling into your lap just as you're asking a question, a recurring dream, and then one day, an image from that dream appears in your real life. Don't dismiss these signs, because in Jung's symbolic world, everything you see outside reflects something stirring within. There's an old question in depth psychology. Do dreams reflect reality, or is reality an extension of the dream? To Jung, the boundary was blurred. When you begin shadow work, when you start listening to the unconscious, you'll find that the world around you begins to sync with your inner world. Imagine you're walking through the forest carrying a quiet doubt about your own worth, and suddenly you come across a dead tree with a tiny green sprout breaking through its cracked bark. You could walk by and never notice. But if you're in the middle of healing, if you've been silently asking, "Can the wounded part of me ever grow again?" that image will hit you in the heart, as if it were an answer. Jung called these images living symbols. They're not here to deliver clear meaning, but to activate something deep and wordless within. And once that feeling is stirred, a new level of perception begins to open. There's one thing you must know. Synchronicity doesn't come to make you believe in magic. It comes to help you realize, every time you shift your inner state, the world shifts how it speaks to you. When your heart is closed, the world becomes hard and silent. When your heart opens, even falling leaves begin to speak. You don't need anyone to validate this for you, because you've already felt it. You just forgot. You called it a coincidence. You called it a random moment. But maybe Nothing was random at all. Carl Jung has a famous quote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And synchronicity is the moment the unconscious touches reality, so that you stop calling it fate and start calling it dialogue. If you've ever had a moment like that, a coincidence so personal it made you stop and feel guided, share your story below, because your experience isn't just yours. It might be the doorway someone else has been searching for. And if these words resonate with you, if you feel a part of your soul slowly waking up, consider subscribing, because this is not just a YouTube channel. It's a journey, a space for those who are beginning to feel something that logic hasn't yet found words for, to walk together. You don't have to believe everything I say. You just need to listen to yourself long enough to remember what you've always known, but somehow forgot how to remember. And if a part of you has started to remember, prepare yourself, because what's coming next is no longer random. Once you are awake enough to see symbols, the world will begin to speak to you in your own language. When you start to see that coincidences are no longer random and the world outside is no longer silent, you step into a different state, a state where reality begins to speak to you in a language all its own. No longer scattered moments of chance, but a sequence of events arriving at just the right time, in just the right place, with just the right person, as if something has been orchestrated just for you. Jung once said that synchronicity rarely appears randomly. It comes when something within you is shifting deeply, when your soul begins to emit a clear frequency, and the world, like a resonant field, responds in kind. A middle-aged woman once shared her story. After a long leave from work, she returned to her job only to feel utterly empty. Everything she once cared about now felt dull, distant. She didn't say anything out loud, but inside a silent question stirred. Have I really been living in alignment with myself? One day, while sorting through an old drawer at the office, a small slip of paper fell from a folder. It was a handwritten note from herself, years ago. It read, "Don't forget what makes your heart come alive. Not everything is worth trading for stability." She didn't remember writing it, only that as she read it, tears began to fall, not out of sorrow, but because some part of her had been awakened at just the right moment. In moments like this, synchronicity is no longer just a curious coincidence. It becomes a message from the soul, sent to you by you, from another version of time. Jung described this kind of timing as sacred time, what the ancients called kairos. Unlike chronos, the linear time we track with calendars and clocks, kairos is the time of the soul, the moment when, even if your rational mind isn't ready, your heart is finally deep enough to receive a shift. It might look like you overhear a random conversation between two strangers, and they happen to be talking about exactly what you've been struggling with. You stumble upon a forgotten book in a cafe you've never visited before, and inside it speaks directly to the question that's been living in your chest. An old friend resurfaces after years of silence, carrying a message, a nudge, as if they were the universe's chosen messenger, arriving right on time. Synchronicity often appears precisely when you feel most lost, when you've stopped trying to master your life in the old way and begin instead to listen. This is what Jung emphasized in the journey of individuation, when you let go of roles that no longer reflect who you are and begin the long return to your true essence. The universe starts sending signals, not loud, not flashy, but quietly, if you're sensitive enough to feel them. Someone once said the universe doesn't answer when you shout. It answers when you begin to whisper to yourself. And synchronicity is the echo that replies to those whispers. You could be living in a noisy city, working full-time, raising children, keeping the house, and still step into the realm of synchronicity. You don't have to retreat from the world. You just have to become more present with yourself. Because when you live truthfully in each step, each glance, each word, the world begins to rearrange itself around your rhythm. Synchronicity isn't here to confirm whether you're on the right path or not. It comes to remind you that you're walking alongside something much greater than yourself, a current, an intelligence, beneath the surface of logic, a life force weaving through your heart and every corner of the day. Carl Jung once likened synchronicity to bridges between two worlds, the visible and the invisible. When you walk across that bridge, you're no longer wandering alone in the dark. You begin to see the light, not because the darkness is gone, but because you've learned how to see within it. If someone you love is going through a foggy season wondering, why is all this happening, feeling overwhelmed, lost, misunderstood, share this video with them. Because sometimes what a person needs isn't an answer, but a gentle mirror to remind them they're not walking alone, that the strange events unfolding around them aren't here to confuse them, they're here to wake them up. And if you feel like you're in the middle of a string of random events you don't understand, don't rush for answers. Stay a little longer in the not knowing, because that space might be exactly where your soul is vibrating. And reality is responding in the subtlest of ways. You don't have to name it just yet. Just walk with it, quietly, because from here on, the people you meet will no longer be random. If synchronicity is the way the world sends signals to you, then people are living letters, souls carrying messages meant for you, arriving at the exact moment you're ready to receive them. After you begin to notice symbols in the physical world, then the strange events that come right on time, you'll enter a deeper layer of synchronicity encounters that are not random. Someone you meet only once, yet they touch something inside you that no one else ever has. A short conversation, and it brings you to tears. A stranger helps you without reason, and years later you still remember their kindness. Or someone comes into your life like a storm, shaking everything, breaking your heart. But through that very pain, they lead you into the healing journey you never dared to begin. Jung believed, we don't attract others simply through personality, but through the fragments of our soul quietly transmitting. You don't choose who enters your life. They arrive because something in you is calling them, and they don't always come to stay. They come to help you see a part of yourself, a part you had long forgotten. You might call them soulmates, or twin flames, or simply chance encounters. But in the deeper realm of depth psychology, they are the living image of your unconscious made flesh. Carl Jung had a concept called projected anima/animus, where the incomplete aspects of your soul are projected onto someone else. You don't just love them for who they are. You love them because your heart recognizes a piece of yourself hidden in them. That's why some people enter your life and you feel like you've known them forever, even though you've just met. The familiarity is so strong it doesn't need words. It speaks through energy, as if two souls had once stood side by side in another lifetime and are only now remembering each other after years of forgetting. Have you ever felt that someone didn't come to make you happy, but to lead you back to a deeper version of yourself? Synchronicity doesn't just bring others to you, it brings you closer to yourself through those very connections. One person arrives and teaches you courage. Another leaves and teaches you release. Someone makes you angry because they awaken a shadow part of you that you've been avoiding. Someone breaks your heart, but through that ache, you learn to love without losing yourself. Every person you meet is a living mirror, and synchronicity is the moment you clearly see your reflection within them. You might have asked, why did I meet that person at that exact time? Why did they leave right when I was finally ready to love for real? Why do I keep being drawn to the same type of people? Jung didn't see these as injustices. He saw them as unhealed cycles repeating themselves until you're conscious enough to see the lesson hidden within. And synchronicity will keep sending you these human-shaped messages until you realize not everyone comes to stay, but everyone comes at the exact time you need to transform. A single encounter can become a turning point, not because that person was fate, but because you, at that moment, were sending out a frequency that called for change, and the universe, ever faithful to your inner rhythm, sent them. Some people enter and leave like seasons. They are not wrong. You are not wrong. It's just that their role in your journey has been fulfilled. And when you choose gratitude over grasping, when you bless rather than blame, synchronicity will send new souls your way, more attuned, more profound, more aligned with the person you are becoming. Because when you shift your frequency, you no longer attract the people you once did. And that is the sign that you're growing not on the surface, but deep within your soul. Carl Jung once wrote, "The people who come into your life are necessary for your inner growth. The question is, do you have the courage to see them as parts of yourself?" If these words resonate with you, if you've ever felt that the people you meet aren't random, but doors opening from the depths of the unconscious, then subscribe to this channel, because what you're sensing isn't strange. It's just that few are quiet enough to notice. And if you're already living with that kind of sensitivity, you deserve to be part of a space that honors what is deep and unseen. So keep living truthfully, because when you align with your real self, the universe will send you the people who are aligned with you. Not early, not late, but right on time, the moment your soul is strong enough to receive the gift called connection. Sometimes you can feel something is happening not just inside you, but everywhere. A vague, nameless sadness, a subtle vibration that doesn't seem to come from your own life, but as if the entire world is feeling the same frequency. You turn on the news and see millions of people going through what you're feeling: disorientation, withdrawal, questioning the meaning of it all. You scroll online and stumble upon words that pierce your heart, not because they're profound, but because they sound like they were written from inside you. You think it's a coincidence. Jung would say, it's the echo of the collective unconscious. In Jung's framework of depth psychology, beyond the personal ego, there is a deeper layer, the personal unconscious, and beneath that, the collective unconscious. This is the realm of archetypes, symbols, and memories that don't belong to any one person, but to all of humanity. When you dream of being lost and someone across the world dreams the same thing, it's not imitation. It's two psyches tuning in to the same frequency. Jung believed that humans are not only connected by language, but by emotional and psychic states that never stop resonating beneath the surface. That's why in certain pivotal moments during global shocks or waves of spiritual awakening, synchronicity stops being personal and becomes a spiritual symphony shared across souls. You might see this happening. People quietly withdrawing from society, feeling tired of the old rhythm, searching for something they can't yet name. Then suddenly, meeting one another in healing spaces, as if some invisible hand had invited them all at once. In 2001, a study called the Global Consciousness Project was conducted. Scientists placed random number generators across the world. These machines ran 24/7, producing purely chaotic data. But in the early hours of September 11th, before the tragedy in the US unfolded, those machines began to produce coherent, synchronized patterns. No longer random, no longer chaotic. The scientific community was stunned. Jung would not have been. He had long said, "We are not alone in our minds. We are part of a vast spiritual field where emotions, images, and meaning move freely between souls." Have you ever felt like something big was happening but you couldn't explain it? Washing dishes, walking down the street, looking at the clouds. And suddenly tears, not because of something specific, but because your heart had just tuned into something the world was also feeling. That is the moment when personal and collective unconscious merge. And synchronicity no longer comes as strange events, but as deep states of resonance that transcend time, place, and language. A woman in Japan writes a blog about loneliness. A man in Brazil reads it and weeps. An artist in France paints something no one else understands, but you see it and feel recognized. Jung believed that the archetypes in the collective unconscious, like the mother, the father, the teacher, the abandoned child, still live within you and me. And when one of these archetypes awakens in someone, it can trigger resonance in thousands of others. Are you feeling something awakening in you? Maybe. You're not the only one. Maybe. You're just one of the first to become quiet enough to hear the call. And when you respond with new actions, new ways of living, softer ways of loving, you're not just healing yourself. You're sending out a wave. Synchronicity at this level is no longer about affirming your uniqueness. It's about reminding you that you belong. You are not isolated. You are not strange. You are not wrong. You are simply remembering what the world too is trying to remember. Have you ever felt this? That you, small as you may be, are holding a thread that invisibly connects to all of humanity, that the silence within you might also be healing someone far away. If you've ever experienced a moment like that, where you no longer felt like a separate self, but a part of something much larger, leave a comment below, not to explain, but simply to say, I'm here. I feel this too, because maybe someone lost in the noise will see your words and realize they are not alone. Rebirth doesn't always begin with light. Sometimes it begins with an empty room, a call that never comes, a day when no one asks how you're doing, and yet you stay. You don't run. You don't try to fill the silence. You don't need anyone to hold on to you, because you've held on to what matters most yourself. Synchronicity in the end is not here to convince you to believe in the spiritual world. It's not here to give you a story to tell your friends. And it's certainly not here for you to sit around waiting for a sign to rescue you. It happens simply to awaken something inside you, something you've always known, but somehow forgot, that you have a soul, that your intuition was once razor sharp, that you are part of a sacred order even if your eyes can't see it. You lived right, on time, responsible, in role. But deep down, you always felt like you were waiting for something. Something far away, yet very close. A touch, a glance, a single sentence, something that would make you remember who you truly are. And then synchronicity appears. A song plays right when you need it. A person arrives as if they've known you for lifetimes. A symbol, a color, an image repeats so many times you finally stop. And for the first time in years, you go quiet. And you listen. From that moment on, the world doesn't look the same. Not because it changed, but because you did. You begin to see with new eyes. You stop seeking and start seeing. You realize sometimes the universe isn't sending signs to you. Sometimes you are the sign it's been waiting for. Synchronicity is no longer something that comes from the outside. It begins to pour from within, from the small, loving things you do for yourself, from the quiet in your steps through the noisy streets, from the way you look at someone not to judge, but simply to be there. You become the one who creates synchronicity in other people's lives, simply by being yourself, unapologetically. Maybe you once believed that awakening meant the world would open, but now you know. Awakening is when you stop reaching outward for a place to belong, because you've finally come home to yourself. You're still here. And strangely, you've never felt so whole. No one holds you anymore. And you no longer hold anyone out of the fear of being left behind. There's a moment, if you're still enough to feel it, when you'll find yourself standing in the very emptiness that used to terrify you. But this time you don't run. You stay. With yourself. With your soul. With a presence so deep even the universe bows in silence. Because synchronicity, after all, is not something to wait for. It's a way of living, a way of listening, a way of being present, as if every moment carries meaning, because your presence is the meaning. If you know someone who's still waiting for a sign, share this video with them, because maybe you are the very touch they've been waiting for. And if you've ever experienced a synchronicity so profound that it changed the way you see everything, leave a comment. Not to tell a story, but to say, I've been awakened too. If this video stirred something in you, subscribe. Not for the algorithm, not for the numbers, but because you want to continue walking this path with others who are quietly listening just like you. And if there's nothing more left to say, let's just sit here together in silence, because in that silence all synchronicities eventually dissolve into the purest presence of the soul. Thank you for staying until the end of this journey.